Hello and welcome to this week's podcast episode, the last of the year and the last of season 1, which feels very exciting. This may be my favourite episode I've done this year because I am joined by the incredible Bex, who is also known as Cosmic Cures on Instagram. She is an astrologer, a cosmic coach, a crystal healer, and she is the founder of the Moonchild Sorority, which is a subscription that people can go to and purchase to learn all about the moon and have new moon circles. And yeah, what she offers is absolutely amazing. Bex helps people align and shine with their own potential by harnessing the power of cosmic energies, and her aim through her work is to use the stars and the lunar flow to tap into women's highest vibrations, moving them from being the passenger of the stars to the journey to being the driving force. How magical does this sound? So within this episode we discuss all things moon energies, actually what moon cycles are and how we can work with them on our spiritual journeys. We talk about what Dark Night of the Souls is, and we just talk about how we can integrate astrology and the moon and, you know, learn a lot from that when it comes to our own development, and how we can really bring this in to our journey to just add like an extra little magical flavour to what we're doing. So I hope you do enjoy this week's podcast episode. If you do, please leave a review on Apple. Please, tag me and Bex and share it away on Instagram. I would love to see how you all find this episode. One of the other things I want to tell you about is I am actually doing a free 7-day give back called Step Into Self-Love coming in January. It starts on the 10th and it ends on the 16th. Within that, we are going to do all of the activating self-love magic. So you are going to have a self-love workshop with me. I have a coach coming on to talk about intuitive eating. I have a breathwork coach coming on. I am going to do a cacao ceremony and a creative body workshop on the 16th before we head into the full moon on the 17th. So this is completely free for 7 days. If you do want to join me, the link is in the show notes. Sign up, you will get the email, join the Facebook group, and if you want to kickstart your self-love, then in January, and you want to realign, you want to refocus, then this is the space to be. So I hope to see some of you there. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast this year, and I shall be back next year with season 2. Hello Bex, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here and being my guest today. It's been a long time in the making setting up this podcast episode.
I know, we're both such busy bees, but it's really nice to finally sit down, have a chat, have a cuppa. Yeah, I can't wait.
I know. So introduce yourself to people listening to this episode. Who are you? What do you do?
So my name is Bex. I am an astrologer, and you might know me as Cosmic Cures, Cosmic_Cures on Instagram. And I set up the platform about a year and a half ago to really share my love of astrology, of moon magic, of crystals, crystal healing, all kinds of alternative therapies, with the idea that I truly believe where attention goes, energy flows. So, it was born out of this pandemic where we were all very much feeling isolated. We were feeling quite out of control. So it's a way of trying to bring people together, but also showing them that they had the power within themselves to create a reality that could be supportive to them. And it's just kind of gone from there, and it's been amazing since. I now write the horoscopes for the Express each month. I contribute to Metro and Glamour, and I have this subscription which my lovely cosmic ladies join, and each month I tell them all about the planets and the moon and how they can work with it. So it's really a way of aligning themselves with astrology.
I love that. And for I know for me, this is something that is quite new, and I'm not, well, when I say new, it's not that new, but I guess if you look at since my spiritual awakening, getting into the energy of the moons was fairly recent, and understanding astrology and all of that stuff for me at first was like an absolute minefield. And I'll be honest, it took me a little while to fully feel into believing it and, believing about the energy of the moon, because it was completely new and we're not taught about that. When like no one teaches us about these things. So for you, why do you think it's important for women or people in general, but like specifically women, to understand about the power of the moon, understand about astrology and use that on their journey?
So as females, we have such a connection to the moon through history. The moon in astrology generally connects to yin energy, feminine energy. The sun is masculine, the moon is feminine. We can also see cycles very much within our menstrual cycles, and the moon cycle, this whole ebb and flow, and at some points wanting to retreat, at some points wanting to shine more. When we look back at ancient civilizations and priestesses and temple worship, then the moon was very much related to the female as well. So there's all of this connection with like feminine essence and the moon. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes hand in hand with spiritual awakenings generally, because with spiritual awakenings, what we're noticing about ourselves is that we are energy, is that we're vibration, and that we can be vibrating at a high frequency and we can feel content, happy, fulfilled, joyful, or we can vibrate at a low frequency. And that's when we feel drained, when we feel de-energized, when we feel unconfident, all of these different things. And so what the moon really does is it helps us to connect with our own personal energy and to understand it. So when we have a full moon, then the moon is shining brightly in the night sky. It's because the sun is opposite the moon. And when the moon's surface is glowing in this way, things come to the surface for us. This is a really important time for us as individuals to notice what is coming to the surface, because the emotions, the memories, the feelings that we have around this time, they don't want to be ignored. They are things that we've been burying deep, deep down in our subconscious. So this is the perfect time to be honest with ourselves, to look at what it is that we might need to change in our lives or ways that we are limiting ourselves. And then we look 2 weeks later and we have the new moon, which is when the sun and the moon are in the same zodiac sign. This is a time for a slight retreat. If we look up into the sky, then it's dark because none of the sun's light is shining onto the moon. So this is why we call it a new moon. It's darkness up there. The moon's still there. The moon's not gone anywhere. We just can't see it. And the same for us. It's this period of retreat for us. We can't be out there, putting ourselves out there, go, go, go all the time. We need to sometimes take that time to just be with ourselves. And so this is a perfect opportunity over a new moon to really think about what it is that we want in life. Where are we? Like recalibration, essentially, once a month, looking at how far we've come in the last 4 weeks, looking at what we want to change, and then setting intentions. And this whole lunar cycle allows us to go through this beautiful process of setting intentions, drawing in new energy, moving on to then this full moon where we release, and then going through this cycle all over again. And it's just a really, really holistic, natural way of checking in with ourselves.
I love that. And I remember you done a workshop at one of my programs, and the way you explained it was so simple, but like it made so much sense. And I am, like my boyfriend will tell you this, I am obsessed with the moon. Like if I see the moon and she's in the sky, I will like, oh, look at the moon. And she's just so beautiful. And I think once I really opened myself up to really appreciating the moon, I really feel the energy of her. And she's just so like powerful in the sky. So you mentioned that you touched on like different phases and stuff with the moon. Can you talk us through? Because I think a lot of people will only know about full moon, new moon. I know a lot of people that I speak to, the majority of them know about the full moon, not so much the new moon. So what are the phases of the moon and how can we work with every phase?
So yeah, we don't really get taught about this a lot, or maybe we do, we do one lesson of it in science or like geography or whatever. And then it just passes on. But when we're looking at the moon's phases, if we think it takes about 28-ish days for the moon to go through the entire cycle, and go through the different zodiac constellations, it means that generally every month we have a new moon and every month we have a full moon, and they're going to fall into a different zodiac sign each month. So this is one of the things that I find most exciting and fulfilling about the journey as well. It's because, say we start an astrological new year, which is kind of like when the sun is in Aries, and what we're looking at there is fire energy, so like pioneering, motivating energy. It also then means that the next month, the sun and the moon on a new moon are going to be in Taurus, which is the one that the zodiac sign that naturally follows on from Aries. And this is very grounding energy. And this allows us to bring like earthy abundance to things. And then we move on to Gemini, which is air energy, which is sharing ideas and speaking our kind of dreams into reality. Communicating. And then we move on to water energy, which would be Cancer. And in that, we go back to nurture ourselves. And then, so with this, we go through each of the 12 zodiac signs with each new moon of the year. And that allows us to connect with a different energy each month. It means that even though the processes of a new moon are the same, setting intentions, looking at what we want to bring into our life, on an Aries new moon, we might think about, what do we want to start? Like, what are we meaning to really get motivated towards? What are we going to kind of step out of our comfort zone for? Whereas on a Taurus new moon, we might think more about, how do I want to create a sense of safety and stability, but also where have I been keeping myself in my comfort zone? So first of all, we have this whole like beautiful cycle of moving through the zodiac signs. Now we're actually looking at the moons. I always like to begin the moon cycle explanation on a new moon, because this is how we would begin a new lunar cycle. This is why I hold my ceremonies on a new moon, because they're really, really powerful for intention setting. And a new moon happens because the sun and the moon are in the same zodiac constellation. So we think the moon takes a whole month to orbit the Earth. At some point of that month, the moon is going to be right next to the sun. And because of the way that it kind of like lines up, so we have the sun and then shining a light onto the earth, and the moon kind of gets in the way of that. Because the sun is shining onto the back of the moon, the side that we don't see, that's so when we look up into the night sky on a new moon, it appears to be in blackness, because it's lined up at that precise angle that we don't get any slither of light. And so during that time, it's just complete blackness in the night sky. The moon has retreated, and the whole point is our intuition is so much more alive here. Our senses prick up, because at nighttime, if we think back thousands of years ago when we were hunter-gatherers, the complete absence of light from the sky, if there's no light pollution, it would have been really, really dark apart from the stars. So we would have had to be so much more aware, and we'd have had to really, really trust our gut, trust our impulses, as well as our other senses. You know, we wouldn't be able to see as well. So on a new moon, it's this whole idea of connecting to that intuition, listening to what our soul has been trying to tell us for perhaps like, you know, a long time, but the chaos of everyday life has got in the way, which is why I always recommend spending some time in meditation over a new moon, spending some time just with yourself, seeing what comes up for you. And on a new moon, what we're looking at is setting intentions and thinking, what do I want to bring into my life? How do I want to create new habits? How do I want to create new goals that are going to get me where I want to go? So this is our new moon, and this is our period of setting intentions, of putting things into place. It's exciting. Now, for the next week after that, the moon is steadily going to appear like it's growing in the night sky. As the moon moves much faster than the sun on its orbit around the earth, more and more light from the sun is going to be able to shine onto it each night. It kind of increases, which is why we've got that beautiful sickle shape in the sky. And this is our waxing crescent. Waxing means that the moon is growing each night, whereas if we have waning, it means it's decreasing. So we have this waxing crescent. And during a waxing crescent phase, this is the time when our energy also starts to rebuild itself. We start to feel more enthusiasm for our projects, especially if we've been feeling really tired over a new moon, which can often happen. Our energy picks up, and we really want to start going in for these intentions that we've set. We have like this impetus to get things started, to begin things. And so as the moon grows, so does our resolve, so does our energy. So we use this period, this first week, in order to really put plans in place and look at the intentions we set, look at the things we want to achieve and think, how am I going to do this? How am I actually going to make this happen? This is a really exciting phase. This is like the kind of where we push things off. Now, a week after the new moon, when you look up into the night sky, you're going to see the moon in that classic half moon shape where half is in dark and half is in shadow. And that means that the moon is now forming a square to the sun. It's at 90 degrees. And classically, over a first quarter moon, this is when the first obstacles start to appear. So you might have spent the last week feeling really, really revved up about these intentions. You might have been really, really enthusiastic and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready for this. Over the first quarter moon, you might face blocks, you might face obstacles, you might suddenly just feel a little bit demotivated by it all. You might be tempted to give up. But actually, what a first quarter moon wants you to do is to look at alternative options. It's to understand that sometimes we're presented with struggles and with problems so that we learn something that's essential to us going forward, or sometimes we're presented with them because actually we're going down a direction that doesn't serve us as well as a different direction would. So some out of the box thinking needs to be applied. So on a first quarter moon, I always really advise women, or whoever's working with the moon, to look back at their intentions, look at where they're coming up against these struggles, these barriers, and think, actually, how could I employ a bit of creative thinking surrounding this? And again, we use whatever zodiac sign the moon is falling into. So say we had this first quarter moon in Gemini. Gemini is the sign of the curious, chatty twins. What we'd be doing is thinking, okay, how can I talk with others? How can I discuss with others so that I can maybe increase my awareness of what's happening? How can I get another point of view? Perhaps I'm just too stuck in my own head. When we work with, say, Aquarius energies, we're looking at innovation, we're looking at science, technology. So if we were on a first quarter moon in Aquarius, we might think, do I need to be a bit more innovative? Have I just been thinking too small? Do I need to look at the bigger picture more? So again, like, it kind of brings this different flavor to the moon. It's just really great to like grasp the different energies we can work with. So after our first quarter moon, we then have a week of, again, a waxing moon because it's still growing, but this time it's a waxing gibbous moon. It's no longer in that crescent shape. It looks a bit more bulbous. And this is a time of heightened energy, heightened appreciation, heightened gratitude for what we have, and even more energy and more power to put things in place. So if we've been starting to work on our intentions in the waxing crescent, this is where we really start to reap the rewards of it and really start to go big or go home with them. And then the next phase we have is the full moon, which is what, the moon that a lot of people resonate with the most. And this happens a week after the new moon. And it's because if we imagine that diagram of the sun and then there's the earth, on the new moon, the moon was right next to the sun. Now imagine 2 weeks later on her journey around the earth, she's got to the other side. And so we have the full light of the sun's, the full light from the sun shining onto her surface in the night sky. So that's why it blazes. That's why we can see so much. And as I just touched on before, when the light of the moon's surface is glowing, things are coming to the surface for us. And this is why we can have really intense dreams over full moons. It means we can often feel quite frantic, quite discombobulated. A lot of the women that I work with always feel either a bit of inattention or kind of quite just like loads of excess energy over a full moon. I love full moons. I get really energized over full moons, to the extent that I now have to rein it in a little bit, because over a full moon, if I'm stuck into a project, I could work until like 9-10 at night and still have loads of energy, but I know I'm going to burn myself out. So you have to still be, pretty understanding of your own boundaries with this. But on full moons, what we do is we look at our limiting beliefs and we look at what is holding us back. So when we're talking about things coming to the surface over a full moon, this can be ways that we are still blocking ourselves from getting to where we want to be because we don't have faith in ourselves, because we still have these stories that we tell ourselves that aren't supporting us, because our mindset is still in some way restricting us. So over full moons, what's really great to do is do some journaling, again, using the energy of whatever sign the full moon is in. And then by doing this journaling, and these can be questions, anything from Where do I still fear lack in my life? Where do I still fear judgment? Where do I feel scared to express my authentic ideas? All of this. We do journaling around this. And then what's really useful to do is write a list of your limiting beliefs. So these could be anything from, I'm scared that if I set up my own business, I wouldn't make enough money. Or I have imposter syndrome and don't think I have enough to teach people. And these could be things that are really, really crucial to get rid of, because this could be stopping you from taking that next step. So we're going to really deep dive into these limiting beliefs, and then you write them down. And then often what we do around a full moon is we hold this burn ritual. Burning is really, really powerful because it is a physical manifestation of us saying, I'm releasing myself of this energy. And also fire consumes, but it also creates. So we take this list of our limiting beliefs, we burn it somewhere safe outside. And in doing this, what we're doing is we're telling the universe and also telling our subconscious mind, I no longer am held captive by these thoughts. And we're also saying, I'm ready. I'm creating a fertile land for some new positive affirmations. And then that's what we do afterwards on a full moon. We write positive affirmations that we're going to use for the next month until the next full moon. And we put them somewhere where we can see them. I am talented enough. I have something to teach others. I can and I will make money. These kind of things. So this is our full moon. Really, really powerful. So for the week after the full moon, we now are in the waning phase. The moon is getting steadily smaller, slimmer in the night sky as the moon is then getting closer to the sun on this journey around the earth. Less of the light is shining on her. So during the waning gibbous phase, this is a chance for gratitude, again, abundance, but also for giving. This is a great time to give to others, to give your services to others, to present yourself to others. If you've been working on an idea and really building it up during the waxing phase, during the waning phase, this is a great time to show it to others, to sell yourself, and to also communicate your dreams and your desires to others. Now, a week after the full moon, again, we have a half moon because the moon is forming a square with the sun, but this time it's a last quarter moon. Now, the last quarter moon is a really essential part before the new moon because that's going to happen in a week. And if you remember, on a new moon, we're setting intentions, we're planting these intentions. We want to make sure the ground is fertile for this. We want to make sure that we're giving our intentions the best possible chance to flourish. And so we don't want to just charge on in there in a new moon and start setting new intentions. We want to really cleanse ourselves. So during our last quarter moon, what we're doing is that word cleanse, declutter. This is physically, you might want to have a clear out. You want to clear out your desk, look at the space around you, maybe clear out your room or anything that makes you kind of feel like your energetic space is given more sort of like vibrance, more vitality. But also we're cleansing our energy. So we're looking at if we're holding on to anything. We're looking if we want to forgive anyone, forgive ourselves, if there's still some sort of like lingering icky energy that we want to just try and purify within ourselves. So this is what we do over this last quarter moon. And then we have that final week before the new moon, where the moon is in the waning crescent phase. So it's still that beautiful crescent in the sky, but it's waning, it's getting smaller each night until it almost appears to disappear from the sky. And during that time, our energy is likely to be a lot lower. I find my energy dips so much during a new moon. I can't work anywhere with a soft surface during like leading up to a new moon. So I'll just lean back and have a nap. So it's a really good time to remember to practice self-care. Try not to organize too many social events, too many things where you feel like you have to show up just before a new moon, and know this is the time when you're going to want to retreat a little bit more. The moon goes through phases, so do we. So she's retreating from the night sky. Really allow yourself to retreat to do wonderful things for yourself, to just take some time. And then that means when the new moon comes around, you'll be ready to set these intentions and ready to tune in with yourself. So that is a kind of potted guide, a moon phase 101 for you.
Thank you. I love that. And that's one of the biggest things I learned from you the first time we spoke, because I'd only ever, like I said, known about the two like significant moons, the full moon and the new moon. So to learn about all these different phases felt like really significant. And one of them, the biggest reasons for me, Bex, was in relation to my period, like learning a lot about the moon cycles and then actually learning about the cycles that I have within just felt like just so in sync with the moon, and actually made me feel, I don't know, like made me feel really powerful, but also like really made me honor
my own cycles. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I take from the moon, is just this continuation of life is all about cycles and shedding. And one of the other things is like, I didn't know the moon was still in the sky when there was a full moon. And I remember when you done that workshop and everyone was like, I didn't know that either. And I just feel like that really symbolizes that there's so much power in us all, but sometimes we can't see it. And that just feels like so significant for the journey, especially a spiritual journey.
I completely agree with you there. Yeah, it's this whole idea that we don't always have to be showing our power. We don't always have to be really exerting our influence on others in order for it to have an effect. Sometimes taking some period of retreat, sometimes taking that moment to be with ourselves is just as important. And we don't do that enough in modern day life. And that's one of the crucial things. And that's why before I start all of my new moon ceremonies, we have a grounding meditation. And I always ask all of the women that join to just give themselves this internal hug or this internal kind of glow of gratitude to themselves for giving up an hour and a half on a Sunday night or a Tuesday night or whenever as we're holding it, to just spend some time with themselves on self-development, on journaling, on visualization, on setting intentions. Because it's so easy to say, oh, I'll do it another time, or I'll prioritize something else. But what actually is more important, once a month, once every 4 weeks, prioritizing yourself to say, what do I need? What do I want? Do I feel like I'm missing in life? Otherwise, we just put our head down, we burrow down to work, to family, to socializing, and we look up and it's, 5 years later and we're thinking, oh, how did I get to this stage in my life? It's all about becoming aware. Awareness is key.
Yeah. I think as well, that's one of the big, like I felt that in my chest when you said you wake up 5 years later and you're like, oh my God, how did it get here? And that's one of the biggest driving forces for me, is thinking that every single day, like if I don't make the moves, even if I'm fearful or I'm doubtful or I've got low energy or whatever it is that's coming up for me and my humanness, it just scares the shit out of me to think if I stay in the position that I'm in now, I could wake up and be in exactly the same situation. So that's a big, big driving force in my life. What would you say to people who are experiencing these dips in energy and this may be the first time they've associated it to the moon? How can they begin to really give themselves self-care, especially if there's nothing going on and they begin to think, oh, it's related to the moon? Because I'll be honest, some people do think it a little bit crazy if you start saying that. I know for me, when I started talking like that, people were like, what is she on about? And I was like, oh, it's a new moon, I'm so exhausted. But it's like, how can people really start to, what's the word I'm thinking of? Honor their needs?
So I would say, first of all, make sure you have a moon calendar or something that's going to alert you to whatever stage of the moon it is. And you can, get these apps that will tell you. You can just look on moontracks.com. You can look at my newsletter. I've got a newsletter.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so you can check on that, and I give little weekly rundowns. But be aware, and I love looking every Sunday night. I just take a little look. I've got my little calendar, and I'll be aware that it's a waning crescent moon. So I'll be aware that I don't want to do too many things. I don't want to socialize too much, but I do want to stay home, and maybe I want to cook a really lovely meal with my housemates because the moon is going to be in Cancer, and that is one of the key things about Cancer moons. You want to stay home and bed in with people that you love. So I would say keep a journal as well. Make sure you know what the moon is doing, and just notice what your energy is, and be very honest with yourself. Each morning when you wake up, take that time before you rush in, jump in the shower or run to catch a bus, and just write I feel, and then just write. Don't overthink it. Don't write as if you're putting down a diary entry that you're going to read years later and it has to be all beautifully written. Just completely expunge yourself of how you're feeling that morning. And sometimes it'll be I feel kind of sad and I don't know why. And I have no idea. I've just woken up feeling a little bit low. Or you might be I'm full of energy. And then just notice yourself how that tracks in with the moon, so that you can start to kind of feel your own processes and feel your own cycle. And with honoring the moon, with things like when you are feeling more low, when you are feeling like you don't have as much energy, and perhaps this is like right before a new moon, for example, then you'll be aware of it. So hopefully, for one thing, you won't overstimulate yourself, or you won't fill your diary up too much. And just remember that it's really important to do things that are enjoyable for you. So if you haven't picked up a book for ages, then put in your diary, in the same way that you would put in your diary meeting someone for drinks at the pub, and you'd make that priority, put in your diary night in with a book and some cacao, or a herbal tea or whatever, and really make sure you stick to it. Like, make a date with yourself. Making a date with yourself, when we do that, we so often break it because we're like, oh, well, I won't mind. But do it as if you were doing it like a really good friend that would say, no, come on, we've made a commitment to each other now, so we're seeing each other. Do that with yourself. And everyone's idea of self-care is different. To some, it's going to be sitting down, phoning up a friend and just chattering on for like 2 hours. Whereas I know some people would be like, oh my gosh, no, that's such an expenditure of energy for me. I actually just want to watch a film that I love on Netflix, or I just want to I want to have a tidy. I just want to tidy my space, and then I want to light some candles, and I want to sit and read a book. So find out whatever it is for you that makes you feel recharged. We all need our batteries recharging in some way, and make a commitment to yourself to do it whenever you know your energy is going to be lower. And then when you know your energy is going to be higher, so for example, for me over the full moon, I tend to set a lot more dates with people. I socialize more. I know that I'm going to be able to get more work done. So I always make sure that I have more work time over a full moon, just so that I'm giving myself that space over a new moon where I can retreat a little bit more.
And everyone, this made me think, does everyone, depending on their personal star sign, react different to the moons, depends on what sign it's in? Because an example of this is we've just come out, well, when I say we have just passed the Scorpio moon. I'm a Scorpio, and everybody around me, all of my friends, were crying, and they were like, it's this fucking Scorpio moon, it just brings so much shit to the surface. And I was just sitting there glowing, oh, I love this time of year. And they were like, it's because you're a Scorpio, you don't feel it as heavily as everybody else. So is that a thing, because I'm a Scorpio, I might react differently and have different responses to moons, and depends on what astrology sign it's in, than other people?
Yeah, totally. And I'm a Scorpio moon as well.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the same as you over the Scorpio moon. So I was getting my lunar return. So for example, because I'm a Scorpio moon, it meant that during the Scorpio moon that we had in the sky, the moon was returning to the place it was when I was born. And so I get this surge of power. So that's known as your lunar return. You get it once a month. Because the moon travels through each of the zodiac signs each month. Everyone's got a moon sign. So once a month, if you know where your lunar return is going to happen, this is a period of increased power for you. And so I was loving the Scorpio moon as well. Whereas when Cancer season comes around and we have a Cancer moon, oh my gosh, Cancer season just does it for me. I know some people that really enjoy it, but for me, I'm just like an emotional wreck for about 4 weeks. I'm just bring on it. And yeah, so it is, depending on your sun and your moon, you're going to be able to associate more with each of the different zodiac signs. And it actually this is what we get into deep astrology, because it depends on your houses as well. Your houses are decided by your rising sign, which is the sign that was on the eastern horizon the moment that you were born. And then from there on, you have 12 different houses. And if you've looked at a birth chart, they're the numbers in the center, and they signify different areas of your life. So the first house, for example, is all about you. It's all about how you show up in the world. It can be your appearance. It's how you kind of step onto the stage of life. And then you've got the second house, which is all about worth and value and material possessions. Third house is all about community, communication, and we go all the way around. Because then we get the seventh house, for example, which is about relationships, and then almost from the 7th to the 12th is how we meet out into the world. So it's our career, for example, it's our social lives. So each moon is going to fall into a different house for you, depending on your specific birth chart, and that shows the area of your life that's going to be either lit up because of a full moon, or that you can focus on because of a new moon. So knowing your sun and your moon sign is really important to know how you're going to react to that moon. Because like you say, for example, on a Scorpio moon, you're going to feel great. It might also mean that on a Taurus moon, you feel less energized, because if Scorpio and Taurus are in polarity on the zodiac, so if you're feeling like really, really boosted on a Scorpio moon, during Taurus, you might feel your energy a bit lower because it's opposite sides. But then once you know what house it's falling into, you also know what area of your life you might feel more affected by it. So it kind of, the more you know, the more you want to know. It's like just peeling back the first little bit of astrology here.
Yeah, I know. And I was looking there when you were talking, because recently someone said to me, it was actually when we were talking in the Scorpio moon, someone was like, what's your sun rising? And then what's the other one that you have? You have your moon, your sun,
and your rising.
And your rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they asked me those three, and I got it up, and it was really interesting. And they were like, oh, you can absolutely, no wonder you're thriving in this season, because you've got all of these star signs that are like that cope well in this time of year. And one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, because I've been through this last year, I feel like I go through it every year, to be honest. Dark night of the souls. Can you explain to us a little bit about that? Because I've touched on that before on my podcast, and I've touched on it on just like in general when I'm talking. And again, people just look at me and they're like, what is that? What is Dark Night of the Soul, Specs?
Dark Night of the Soul. Well, it might be different to how you perceive Dark Night of the Soul. What I've always been taught with Dark Night of the Soul, my dad is a yoga teacher, he's taught and he's facilitated meditations for years and years and years, almost 50 years. And in meditation, the dark night of the soul is where you get to a point where you almost are meeting yourself. So a lot of people use meditation as a way to relax. You know, it's putting on this lovely tinkly music, it's sitting down with your crystals, it's returning to your breath, and it's going into a lovely Zen state. So anyone who gets deep into meditation will tell you that this is like part one of meditation. This is getting to the gate of meditation. That's kind of like the initiation of meditation. It's what we know in the West as meditation, a lot of us, and it's what these apps that lead us through meditation, guided meditations, want to get us to. But actually that's like the introduction, because then what we're doing is we're going deeper. We're going to meet ourselves. So meditation is where we're trying to reach a state of being aware of the space between our thoughts, the space between our breaths. And in this space, this is where we go deep within, and things come up for us that we have been hiding, like traumas, wounds, insecurities. And this is what meditation is about. It's about trying to kind of clear this and reach this shadow. And so a dark night of the soul, I was always taught about, is where you have that point where you don't want to go on, where you think this is too much for me, and you think I can't go on. And so then naturally a lot of times you'll like retreat, because you'll be like, I want to go back to that feeling of Zen, that lovely kind of feeling of relaxation. But this is why meditation is a practice, right? You know, you don't just sit there and enjoy it the whole time. It works on it. This is why it can take years and years and years to get to a state of meditation where you meet yourself. And the dark night of the soul is where you feel like that there is nothing more that you can get from yourself, and you like feel fearful, but you move through it, and then beyond that is where clarity comes. So that's what I was taught about dark night from the soul. I don't know if that's your same.
No, it does. It sounds similar, but it sounds like I was taught about it from a spiritual coach when I was going through a process last year where it was just like one thing after another. And I just went so deep in myself in a period of grief and introspection, and literally was like, I have nothing else. Like, why is my fucking life falling apart? What is going on? Feeling deep feelings I had never experienced in my life, and nothing was getting me out of them. None of the self-love practices was getting out of them. And someone just said to me, like, have you heard of the Dark Night of the Souls? But the way they explained it to me was like every so many years, we go through a phase where we just go through like a deep phase of like shedding. And they said the same, like meeting ourselves. And it's just like you have to dig deep and go through it and then come out the other side of it. So it's probably being taken from that meditation world, hasn't it? And then brought into the spiritual realm.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the whole concept of the dark night will be very similar there. It's this in lots of spiritual practices, it will be this point where you decide to go on this journey and you realize that spiritual journeys aren't all just love and light. It's where you think, and you realize that actually the hard part and the challenging part, but at the only rewarding part really is where you get to that point where you're like, oh my God, I've got a lot to work with here. Like there's a lot of icky stuff that's coming up and I can't be afraid anymore. It's almost like getting to those big double doors and being a bit like, I'm scared of what's behind here. I don't want to go, but I'm going to push through. And yeah, it can be tough and yeah, it can be challenging and it's not easy. And it is, it can be, it will be tough and it will be challenging. If you get there, it's going to be really, really hard. But we learn through this and we evolve through this and we transform through this. So it will definitely come up. It's with astrology, there are certain things that will bring it up for you. So for example, Pluto is the planet that brings us a need to transform and a need to shed and purge ourselves. Pluto is the planet of purging. And so there'll be certain aspects and transits. So when Pluto in the sky, for example, Pluto is a really slow moving planet. Pluto is the furthest, some people, even it's not a planet, that's fine. And it moves so slow that the effects it has on us, they tend to take place over longer periods of time. But when Pluto makes an aspect to one of our natal planets in our birth chart, for example, Uranus, the planet that brings disruption and chaos, say Pluto in the sky is opposite Uranus in your birth chart. This is going to take place over anything like up to a year, for example, because it's so slow moving. But during that time, because Uranus is all about creating new structures and destruction, and Pluto is all about purging, this can be a time where you feel like your entire life is having to be recreated. You can feel like everything is falling apart. And it's interesting when I've read birth charts for women and they're like, I just had to get a birth chart reading because I don't know what's going on in my life. First thing I'm looking at is like, right, what's Saturn doing? What's Pluto doing? Because these are the two planets that when they're making an aspect or to something important in your birth chart, it causes this need to seek help, because you're like, why do I feel so completely out of control? Why does it feel like everything is just trying to realign itself in my life? Like I can't control this. But the important thing with this is that no, you can't control it. Don't try and resist it. Go with the flow. Accept that destruction is a natural part of creation. And so this is why I love astrology. I talk to just as many people that enjoy astrology as people that are like, oh, what are you talking about? It's complete BS. And I'm like, you know what? You have your opinion. You live your life. If you want to live your life believing that we wake up and we go to work and we earn money and then we live for the weekend and then we repeat that until we retire at what's going to be like, 90 by the time that we get there. I'm like, that's the life that you want to live. That's fine. I want to live a life where, for me, as above, so below. I do believe that the planets and the cosmos have this greater effect. Do I believe it's exactly how we decipher astrology now? No, not necessarily, because I don't think we know enough about it. But to use it as a self-help tool, to use it as this reminder that we can't control things, that we need to embrace flow, that we need to embrace acceptance. It's just like such a crucial thing. And it's helped me. It's helped so many other people. So as a self-development tool, I just think it really can't be beaten.
Yeah, I agree. And my spirituality is, since I had my awakening, my practices are like, and people always ask me this, and people will always like say to me, oh, this about spirituality and this, and I'm like, it's a practice that you have to find. That's why I don't like share a lot of it on Instagram, because it's just a part of who I am. But honestly, having a bigger perception of the world and the universe and the moon and all of the things we've discussed brings me peace in chaos. Now I have the ability to sit in the eye of a storm and think it will pass, it's fine. And that is the greatest gift I've ever been given. I thought it this morning, actually. I was swimming outside and it was like a heated pool and the sun was coming up and it was like cold, but the sky was blue. And I was like, I am so grateful, so fucking grateful I got the opportunity in this life to wake up and open my eyes and see how beautiful this world is. And I think what you've just said is exactly that. It doesn't matter if you believe in all of these things or you don't believe in it, but if you do believe in it and it helps you, well, then that's the most important thing, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. That's so beautifully said. And you're right, because we are creating our own reality on a moment by moment basis. And we have the choice to decide if we see something as beautiful and unique and special, or if we're just going to go about things, run of the mill every day. And that's not trying to negate the fact that there are horrendous things happening in the world and atrocities, and people have to go through so much. And it's not coming from like, white privilege kind of space either, or a white privilege spiritual space, but it is just saying that if we have power over one thing in our lives, it's our perception, and it's where our thoughts go. And so practicing looking at things with gratitude, looking at things with a sense of the world as a beautiful place, can really, really help in dark and troubling times, which we're all going to go through at some stage in life. And it's just this amazing, amazing tool to use. And I think that's what it is, like astrology, crystal healing, tarot cards, oracle cards, all of this, any of this. It's just tools. It's tools to help us navigate our way forward and also return to ourselves. So there's no point coming at astrology or coming at crystal healing or any of this with this idea of, well, it's just going to fix me. I've tried everything else, I'm just going to try and do this. It's like, no. Astrology, crystal healing, meditation, or none of this is going to work if you're coming from a place that you want to be convinced, or where, you're not sure. You have to open up to it, embrace it, and be like, I'm going to make a conscious choice that my life is now going to be richer because of this. And once you've done that, then brilliant. You've like opened the door to so much more awakening.
Yeah. And I feel like as well, the more open you become, the more you experience. It's like you have to lean in to be able to feel these things. I have had moments where I have felt so emotional, just like seeing a full moon in the sky. I'm not even joking. And Luca's like, Lydia, you're like a child. And I'm like, I know, because just look how amazing life is. Like, I seen a rainbow the other day. Beth, I should have seen me on my story. I was nearly crying. But, 3 years ago, I was just walking around not noticing these things. So it's just like, nothing. You just have to open your eyes. And once you do that and you lean into possibility, then the universe will begin to pay you with like little moments that just take your breath away. Or little moments, coincidences that you cannot put into words. You can't explain. There's no explanation for the coincidences that the universe just begins to bring you. And it's magical. It makes life fun.
Oh, it does. These universal synchronicities. So true.
So fun.
And of course, like you think about it, then the life that we are all living at the moment and have been living, I don't know, like for the past 100, 200 years, where we are constantly busy. We're in buildings all the time. We're so rarely in nature. We're not in community as much as we used to be. The food that we're putting into our bodies, just like generally how we're going about our daily lives. This is so unnatural and so far removed from the, thousands and thousands of years of when we were growing and when we were developing and when we were out in nature and we were living by whatever the weather was doing, and we were living by what the moon was doing in the sky as well, because we could see more on a full moon or we could see less on a new moon. Look, we're innately supposed to have a connection with nature. There's absolutely no there's it's a surety.
Well, that's why we all want to hibernate now. because if we go back years, we would have hibernated.
Exactly.
That's why we want to do that.
Yeah, totally. And so, like you say, when you see the moon, you feel this rush of emotion, or you see a rainbow and you see the beauty of it, it's because you've managed to tap back into that innate source of power within you. And it's so powerful when you do that. And I feel very much the same. I live back in a city now, but over lockdown, I was amongst nature for about a year. And honestly, it was just so powerful. I felt like I was having sort of epiphanies about myself, like each day, because I was in nature every day for at least an hour, just walking. I wouldn't take my phone, wouldn't be listening to a podcast. I would just be in nature. And so much came to me, so much came up for me. And it was just such a truly like enlightening time for me. And I just think if we can't all do that, I know, because that's not the way that life works at the moment, but giving ourselves an opportunity to connect more and to allow ourselves to feel this beauty, to look at the sky and marvel at it without feeling silly, that's really, really important. And the thing that I love to remember, I remind myself every now and then, that makes me go wow, is that when I'm looking up into the sky, whatever the stage of the moon is, but if it's like it's one of those beautiful big blazing full moons, I remind myself, like, this is the same moon that the Inca people were looking at when they were holding their ceremonies on Machu Picchu. This is the same moon that when there were ancient Egyptian ceremonies to worship the moon, that's the same moon. That moon hasn't changed. It's not like a tree that's, grown and then shed its leaves and then been sort of like chopped down and new ones growing. This is the same one that caused emotion to rise in every single person in history that's ever lived that's looked at it. And I just think that's kind of amazing.
That's absolutely amazing. I love that. It's so, I have moments like that as well, Bex, where like I look at the ocean or just like things in nature, and I think sunrises make me think this actually, and I think one day I'm not going to be here, but that sun will still be rising and someone else will still enjoy that sunrise, or the ocean will still be going in and going out. And one day I won't be able to see that anymore. And it really, that's like the type of stuff that I could never put into words. But that's what spirituality is for me, those thoughts. And it's just the greatest gift I've ever been given.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's a complete game changer, isn't it? And I think that's why we've both now moved into this phase of our lives where we want to help others and coach others with it or aid others. And it's just because when you have something that's benefited you so much, you want to share it with others, don't you? And it's not in a way that's like you want to push it on others. It's because it's a complete choice, but it's almost like saying, look, oh my gosh, I'm having like a party here in my life. Join my party. Yeah. You want to invite them. You're like, come on in. It's free for all. You just have to change your mindset. And so that's why I like doing it.
I love that. And I love how much I go smiling talking about it.
I know. It's like, talking about the moon. You could sit hours.
Where can people find you and how can they work with you?
So I'm on Instagram, cosmic_cures. So pop by, say hello. I do share so much astrology info on there, and I share journaling prompts, and you can like look at all my highlights and things like that too. I also have a free newsletter that I send out on a weekly basis, which gives you the rundown to what the lunar energies and what the planets are doing each week. And you can sign up for that with the link in my bio. And what I'm very proud of is my subscription. So that's a monthly subscription that you can get. It's £7 a month. And for that, you get 3 booklets each month. And like, they're just so jam-packed with information. So the first one is just a monthly rundown. So it's like 26 beautiful PDF, 26 pages. And it tells you every single day of the month. It gives you a journaling prompt for each day of the month, depending on where the moon is. It gives you advice for each day of the month, depending on what the planets are doing and what you might be feeling. Gives you little cosmic assignments so you can realign yourself, gives you a calendar to work with, and it's just great for dipping in and out of. And then each month you also get a full moon workbook that you get just before a full moon. It's going to give you journal prompts, advice on setting up a ceremony, ritual spaces, advice for like tarot card pulls or oracle card pulls. It's packed full of that. And you also get a new moon guide, which again gives you all the information you'll need to get 3 guides a month for that. And you can get daily emails as well if you want included in that. You get money off moon ceremonies. So yeah, the subscription is something that I'm really, really proud of, and we've just created this great community from it. So do have a look at that. And then I also hold monthly moon ceremonies, new moon ceremonies, where we all gather via Zoom, and it's a chance, it's an hour and a quarter each one. You get this booklet beforehand, and we do a mixture of meditation, journaling, visualization, manifestation methods, intention setting, and they're all geared towards whichever moon is in the sky. So they're all different, they're all very unique. We do different activities on each of them. It's really, really good fun. So yeah, ceremonies, subscription, Instagram, come and join in the cosmic community any way that you want to.
I love that. Thank you so much, Bex. And I'll put all of that information in the show notes too for people to find. This episode has been amazing. It's probably been one of my favorites, to be honest, because I love talking about stuff like this. So thank you so, so much for being on. And yeah, I shall share the episode with you when it's out.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I've adored talking about the moon too. I love talking about it with you because I can sense your enthusiasm for it. It's just great. It's just so fulfilling for me. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. And hopefully your beautiful listeners have found some use of it as well.
I know. Thanks, Bex.